Like, if you did care about trust in institutions, then you should be even louder than me talking about, like, you got to tell the truth on this story. Otherwise, we'll never have trust in these institutions.
So recently, Dave Smith went on the Lex Friedman podcast and talked about, among other topics, the truth about Jeffrey Epstein, what the story represents, why it doesn't make sense for people to complain about the lack of trust in institutions and not demand more answers over this, and why this story is just so crazy from beginning to end. So let's watch and let's react to what Dave thinks. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel too.
I bring up Jeffrey Epstein often because there's a fascinating study of evil to me, whichever angle you take on it. And I think they're partially to talk shit, but I showed some skepticism that he's connected to Mossad. So to me, there's three, and I've evolved on that since then. By the way, I'm not actually sure it's Mossad. It could be any intelligence agency. It could be CIA. But I was wondering if you could educate me. I did a little research on this last night. I looked into it a little more, and then I saw that you said he's definitely Mossad.
Well, I don't know if I didn't say he was definitely Mossad. I don't know my exact. I mean, I made one kind of jokey post, as is the case with almost any intelligence operation. Look, I don't want to like poo-poo anybody's hopes here, because I guess like the JFK files just got released, and supposedly the rest of the Epstein files are coming out, and there's a lot of
we'll see about that one, won't we?
There's a major yearning right now to get to the end of the movie where we find out everything that happened, you know, and that I think it's great that people have that desire, and I hope more and more does come out. I think the truth is that with any intelligence operations, we're probably never going to know all of the details of exactly what happened.
The funny thing about
Yeah, and the thing with Jeffrey Epstein is that the reasons why there's a lot of allegations that he was involved in Mossad, I do think there are several circumstantial pieces of evidence that lead people to conclude that, by the way. And if you want to know more about that, you should really read Whitney Webb's book, One Nation Under Blackmail, because it goes into these things in depth. But there's essentially two connections. One is that Jeffrey Epstein was very close with Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, who traveled to meet Epstein 30 times in the 2010s, I believe, that came out, and that's thoroughly documented. And the other thing is that his father-in-law was Robert Maxwell, who was involved in the Israeli government to some extent. Seymour Hersh has outright said that Maxwell was involved in Mossad. I think that some people debate that too, but Hersh is an eminent journalist that broke the My Lai massacre, the Abu Ghraib scandal, the bombing in Cambodia, and most recently the fact that the CIA was involved in the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline. Legendary journalist, maybe one of the most well-known of the whole 20th century. So it's those two connection points, and the fact that Epstein inherited a lot of wealth that a lot of people, including myself, are sure not clear about where he acquired it. He was financed by Lex Wexner. He managed Lex Wexner's money. But other than that, it's not really clear why. And he might have been given multi-millions from Wexner just to help him with his taxes and money management, and it doesn't really seem to have been justified based on what he was doing and how he immediately acquired it. So there's many things here. He could have been involved in other agencies, as Lex alludes to, but there is circumstantial pieces of information that do point to a Mossad connection.
Well, intelligence agencies, and I've been regularly accused of being CIA, FSB, or Mossad, depending on the group that's attacking me. But I think it's a fascinating topic, and it's very difficult to know somebody's intelligence. But if you have any nuance, I want to discuss the nuances, then the comment is going to be that guy for sure is Mossad.
Right. Yeah,
if we're talking about Mossad or so on. But yeah, that's one of the things I didn't know, and I saw Alex Acosta said that basically mentioned that Epstein's intelligence. That to me is like, okay, that's a piece of evidence. That's a really valuable piece of evidence that he's intelligence. And that was very, not just intelligence, but Mossad. Because before that, I thought it might be CIA, because I kind of heard.
And I think it's quite possible that he was working with elements of both. I mean,
Yeah, it seems more and more these days that the CIA and Mossad is utterly indistinguishable, doesn't it, in some ways? It's really hard to know, honestly.
Think is often the case. I also think that's something that people get a little bit wrong, like when they think like, okay, this guy was CIA or this guy was Mossad, and then there's also, I think there's the possibility that there are rogue elements within those organizations. Like this is not necessarily coming from the director or what, you know. I don't.
That's a really good point, actually, because the deep state is siloed. You know, the George W. Bush administration made a huge scene of creating the director of national intelligence, an overarching czar over all the intelligence services. But with any bureaucracy, and you see this in the corporate world too, but the same is true in government, there's different centers of power, even within the same agencies, that wield independent powers and kind of only talk to their own agents and their own employees about what they're doing, their own projects, and other parts of that organization never hear, sometimes including leadership. This is said by a lot of whistleblowers. Snowden remarked about it. Ray McGovern has remarked about it. Frank Snepp, I think, has remarked about it. All three of those are whistleblowers. So this is a really good point I think Dave's making.
No, but you look at the guy, the way his career trajectory tracks is like completely unexplainable outside of being connected to intelligence. Like it's not just like the one or two people saying that he's intelligence. It's like, dude, the idea that you're just like you have no experience and you're a teacher at Dalton, which is like this incredibly elite New York City private school, and then all of a sudden you're at Bear Stearns, and like within 2 years you've like made partner, and you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and nobody knows where you made your money from. This just doesn't happen. And
yeah, that's the craziest thing. You know, Epstein had a short-term stint as, I think, a math teacher, and then he was dismissed for bad behavior, bad performance, and then suddenly he falls into the arms of Lex Wexner after a few years on Wall Street or as a banker. But Dave's so right. A lot of his acquisition of wealth is totally unexplainable otherwise.
then you're just inserted into this world with all of the most like highest level political leaders and cultural figures and stuff. But the thing that's amazing about the Jeffrey Epstein story is that it's like the level of evil and the level of corruption that it exposes, no matter what the answer is. Like no matter what the answer is, it's you're gonna tell me that there was a pedophile ring in our country that involved, I mean, listen, dude, if you had said this shit before it came out, this would have been the wildest conspiracy theory. But a pedophile ring that involves the most powerful people in the United States of America and in the world to some degree, touching the royal family, the Clintons, like all these people, and that this was known and covered up and then allowed to continue. I mean, like there's a blackmail operation that relies on raping American children, and like if this is whether it's CIA or Mossad doesn't make one less, it's equally horrible. But then there's like these elements where like you're like, okay, so when he first got arrested, and then he was given a slap on the wrist, and then the prosecutor says, "Well, I was told by the intelligence community that he's intelligence and to go easy on him." It's like, okay.
For those that are unaware, Dave is referencing his first arrest and conviction in 2005 under allegations of sex trafficking that he's talking about here. But Dave is so right. This is such a criminal story to have been covered up to such an extent. I mean, they convicted Maxwell for sex trafficking underage girls to no one. We haven't heard the clients. There's only been a few of the victims that have asserted who some of the clients were. Victoria Giuffre, I think, the prominent one that just, committed suicide. And there's, right? Everyone commits suicide in this case. But there's questions about her, and she has accused Prince Andrew and Alan Dershowitz, and there's been some others too. I don't know if it was her, another victim that accused Brunel, but we still don't have the answers. There had to have been more clients, and the FBI won't reveal those and won't turn them over, but they secured convictions of sex trafficking to no one, and they would have done the same with Epstein had he not killed himself, right? Had the video cameras in his cell not malfunctioned, right?
And you didn't resign in disgust that day? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's too much to ask for. You know, there was the ABC reporter who said that she had the whole story. She was on the hot mic saying she had the whole story, and then the network told her to squash it. It's like, and you stayed working there?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying like we're all imperfect and none of us are heroes, but like, you're at a news network and you uncovered a child raping ring that implicated the most powerful people in our society, and your news network told you we will not run this story because of our relationship with the royal family, and you did not resign in disgust that day and take this story to every single independent, outlet that would maybe publish it. I'm sorry. It's like
And I think Dave is referring to Amy Robach, who was the ABC reporter that had that story and remained quiet about it. But it's an excellent question. Like, if that doesn't turn you away from the corporate media, I don't know what would. Like, that is insane to me. It's just incredible.
It's so damning to the entire apparatus that we did not see, at the very least, see mass resignations over this. Forget even like at the very least expect that it would have been prosecuted and shut down. And then, still to this day, even it's like, and I think Tucker Carlson just said this recently, but like, and I guess it's a little bit of a weird area when you're filming people raping children, but where are the tapes? Why is everyone talking about the flight logs and the files? Where are the tapes? This guy was clearly taping people to blackmail them.
Yes, exactly. And it's reported that Epstein actually stored tapes of these people to blackmail them specifically in a safe with CDs that were actually marked with that client's name. And why hasn't that been seen or revealed? I mean, obviously some of it would be too sensitive to disseminate amongst the general public, but that's just been completely buried too. There's no sense in it all, and it's so maddening.
Where are those? I don't know what the legal process of this is, but like, because I think technically it's child porn. So like, yeah, okay, you can't just like distribute it out and let everybody watch it. But isn't there a way that like somebody has to sit down and watch it and see who is implicated in this and see who like, I just don't. And there's even, I think there's a lot of LARPing with this administration going on right now on this topic. But does anybody really expect that we're actually going to get to the bottom of this? Because I don't. And that in itself just tells you what a sham this whole goddamn system is. One of the things that's so amazing about the Jeffrey Epstein story, right, is, I mean, you have all of that. And then, of course, the end of it, which is just like, wait a minute, wait, what? Hold on. He's in like the most secure, like, prison. And then he gets the cameras go out and the correctional officers don't fill out the log and he's found dead. I mean, it's it's just, but when you look at it in totality,
and that's not even the half of it. The layers of this thing just add and add and add up. I mean, that's maybe the most insane aspect of the whole thing, that these employees that were overseeing him in his cell were supposedly negligent on that day, that both cameras that were into his cell happened to malfunction on that day, how there were multiple nooses in his cell, and one of the doctors that actually, viewed his corpse said a particular bone got broken, when that doesn't usually happen in cases where people hang themselves. There's just so many crazy things to this that is not explainable outside of some conspiracy, some sort of cover-up on many levels here. It's just, for this story to be so buried to the extent that it has, is really telling about what the regime can get away with.
There's just like no getting around the huge indictment it is of this entire, like, everything. And I mean, even the fact that even the Trump administration, when Pam Bondi goes, we're going to release all of this information, we've only redacted what needs to be redacted for national security.
The meme.
Like, why does anything need to be redacted for national security? Like, I'm sorry, you're telling me there's a pedophile ring and we can't tell you everything about it for national security? Why would that be related to national security?
Yeah, and the crazy thing here, Glenn Greenwald made a great point about this, is if anything has to be redacted for national security, then you know that Epstein was involved in an intelligence agency. Because that could compromise U.S. national security in the eyes of people that want to keep those things covered up. If he was a CIA agent, what does that say about our institutions? That they want to protect desperately despite all the wrongdoing that the CIA has been involved with. What if he was a Mossad agent or connected to Mossad in some way? Well, that would cast doubt on the entire campaign of the U.S. to funnel money into Israel, be consummate Zionists, and let Netanyahu do whatever he wants. That would compromise what the U.S. empire builders want in so many ways, and that's the only reason that you could think of why a sex ring would compromise national security.
I mean, there's just it's like, and I do think there's something, and it's very interesting because, you know, like we talked briefly, was that on air before we were talking about Sam Harris kind of like criticized me a little bit for not having the credentials to talk about some of this stuff, which, you know, like I even said, okay, he's got a point. But it's like one of the things that like guys like Sam Harris will talk about a lot is that like, look, we need trust in institutions. And this is his big thing where he goes, you know, these people like Joe Rogan and Dave Smith are just tearing down the institutions. And while I recognize that's an issue, I also think we need trust in these institutions.
That's a
It's
good
like
Sam Harris.
well, it's like, yeah, but what? Yeah, well, if you talk in that tone, then it means you're not being emotional and you're only being logical and rational, which is like, I actually don't think is appropriate when you're talking about a child rapist ring. But whatever. That's my take on it. But it's like, okay, so where are these institutions I'm supposed to trust, man? You're telling me there's a pedophile ring that is at least in some degree associated with national security. Like what? And how could you possibly have this story? Like if you did care about the trust in institutions, then you should be even louder than me talking about like you got to tell the truth on this story. Otherwise, we'll never have trust in these institutions.
I'm the
Yeah, that is so true. If you want trust in institutions and you are in control in some way of those institutions, you have oversight, you can appoint their heads, you have the ability to reform them, to adjust them, to eliminate them. If you have that kind of sovereign power over them, the first thing you should do is make sure that they don't engage in evil wrongdoing, which so many of them do. We know that from the COVID regime. We know that from the surveillance state. We know that from the corrupt financial system and the Federal Reserve. We know that from the empire building and the war machine and the military industrial complex. We know it from all those. So if you want trust in the institutions, they need to stop being corrupt, because that's the natural response of human beings to institutions that are corrupt. And we see that from top to bottom in the deep state. And certainly we see shenanigans in the Jeffrey Epstein case. This is just insane that it's been buried. So many of the details are obfuscated, omitted. People want to talk about the flight logs all day, every day. But Dave is right. The more important stuff is the tapes, who is involved, the actual clients, and whether there were intelligence connections. Those are the most important things that we need to know. But like Dave, I have a feeling that we'll never know, because those things are especially damning to the regime that wants to hide them and conceal them from the American public. But what do you guys think? Do you think Dave Smith's right? Let me know in a comment below. What do you think the craziest part of the Epstein story is, and the part that we really need to get to the bottom of, or you think the most insane aspect of the entire story? Let me know down below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, make sure to hit that bell and follow along if you want to see more videos like this. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you in the next one.